with reality. It was still dark outside, but at least he had the comfort of the lights in the harbor, boats in the water, real things. Sydney was alive and breathing, even at 5 in the morning, and that was good enough for now. Sunrise would come soon, banishing the last vestiges of the dream from the recesses of his mind. He rubbed his temples, sucked in air, and shook off the confusion. So he had dreams, so what? Too much partying is what he attributed it to. And not enough sleep. In every respect, Nic was normal, healthy as could be for a 33-year-old male. Right. Fucking freak of nature is what you are, he mumbled as he slid out of bed and grabbed his board shorts. The waves were supposed to be kick-ass right now. It was the only lure that would have brought him home. Not that anyone was here anyway. His father wasn't, which was typical. And even if he had been here, he wouldn't have noticed Nic if he'd paraded naked into the kitchen with a girl under each arm. He smirked at the shock value of that visual. He might have to try that sometime to see if it got a reaction from his dad or his Uncle Bart. Probably wouldn't. With a loud yawn, he stretched, then slid into his shorts and white nylon shirt, went into the bathroom to brush his teeth, ran his fingers through his hair, and splashed water on his face, hoping to shake off the nightmare. One would think he'd downed enough booze at the club last night to afford a dreamless sleep. But oh no. Sometimes he was lucky enough to remember. Or cursed. He wished he couldn't recall the dreams with such clarity. The dreams terrified him, and he was too damned old to be scared of monsters in the dark. As he came out of the bathroom, the first line of dawn slipped above the horizon. He grinned, adrenaline pumping blood into his booze-soaked veins. Time to catch a wave and forget about monsters. Shay Pearson drummed her fingers on the kitchen tabletop of the small house where she and the rest of the demon hunters had been housed for over a month. They'd been plotting and waiting. Talking and planning was tiresome. She was ready to get out there and get the job done. The time for all this strategizing was over, at least in her mind. Try telling that to Lou. He was big on the scheming thing, on making sure there was a plan. Whatever. This was the reason why she wasn't the one in charge. If it were up to her, she'd charge out there on the beach, grab Nic, and haul him off. She still didn't understand why they couldn't do just that, other than the whole kidnapping in public thing. But if Nic Diavolo, a.k.a. Nic, was a danger, was a demon, then wouldn't it be better to snatch him now, before he did something demonic? Okay, so we've determined Nic's daily routine. Nic's brother Derek rounded the table and pointed to the whiteboard they'd set up. They'd marked routes from Nic's house to the beach to the nightclubs, everywhere Nic had been going for the past month since they'd tracked him down in Sydney. Which really isn't much so far. He gets up, he drives to the beach, and he surfs with friends for several hours. Then he goes back to the house and stays there until dark, when he typically heads out to one of the Sydney night spots to party. And man, does he know how to party. Punk dragged his hand through his spiky hair and yawned. The bastard is running us ragged. Derek grinned. Yeah, like you hate hanging out in bars. Punk shrugged. A man's gotta do what a man's gotta do. Lou stepped up next to Derek and put up his hands. It's important to remember that we have two main objectives here. First, to figure out what Nic is up to, and whether or not he's part of the Sons of Darkness. If so, how deep into the demon realm is he? And do we kill him if he is? Ryder asked, his gaze shooting to Derek. It was a valid question, Shay thought, though a delicate one. Derek was the right-hand man to Lou, a keeper of the light, the prime nemesis to the Sons of Darkness, the demons. Derek was also Nic's brother. Derek was half demon, which meant so was Nic. Derek controlled the dark half of himself, but they didn't know yet about Nic, since he'd been kidnapped by their father when he was just a child.